Hi.
Beautiful. Are you
Thank
doing the
you.
whole fist bump thing to say hello?
Oh,
I love this color
hi.
on
Thank
you. You
you.
look
And I
amazing.
like your outfit
Thank you
too.
so much.
Very
You have a
beautiful.
beautiful home. Thanks for inviting us.
Anytime,
Yeah,
come back. Yeah,
anytime.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
hold you to
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
So let's just walk and take advantage of
yeah.
this
Okay.
as you tell me about. First of all, how long have you been in Kenya?
Since September last year, so relatively
Ah,
recent arrival.
yeah.
Yeah,
So maybe
not
6
even
months.
half, not
Not
even. Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
and how have you found it?
Beautiful country,
Yeah.
beautiful
Mm-hmm.
people. I really enjoyed so far my stay here,
Yes.
and the experience is just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me one Swahili word. I'll be kind to you. Just one.
Karibu or
Karibu.
asante sana.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, okay, tumekaribishwa. Thank you. We feel very
Okay.
welcome. We feel very welcome. So, Your Excellency, tell me, the work that you've done here in Kenya so far, and I know we are starting with the current, and sometime later on during the show, we'll go to your background just to
Yeah.
trace your
Yeah.
steps. But just looking even through your digital profile, you've done a lot of work with women. Is
It's
this
true.
something close to your heart? Is this something you enjoy?
Well, I'm a woman myself, and I have seen how difficult life is sometimes for women.
Yes.
And I've seen also how difficult it is for professional women to get through and get a good position. So
Yeah.
always I have tried to bring women up
Yeah.
with me. So
Mm.
whenever I saw women struggling or whenever there are women around me, I try to help them.
Yeah.
So, and that translates into all my activities.
Everything that you do
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far. So it's the International Women's Day. This whole month on the show we are celebrating women because International Women's Day falls in March. And first of all, what would your message be to the women in this country where you're serving now?
Well, you're already having a very, very important role in this country, and the sky's the limit. So just don't get bogged down or discouraged. I know so many women who are in trouble right now due to COVID.
Yeah.
Just this morning, I read in a newspaper about the cultural practice in Samburu
Mm-hmm.
to beat women, young girls, to be then the sex object
Yes.
of a Moran.
Yes.
That this is an accepted cultural practice
Yeah.
that keeps the children or the young girls out of school.
Yeah.
And then from then on, they're being married to somebody. And I read mostly in a polygamous marriage with an older person. So this is just one example of women that are not having the full advantage of the opportunities here. And but I've met so many other women
Yeah.
like you and many others who are up and coming or who are already there.
Yes.
I mean, even in the current cabinet, there are several very good female ministers that I admire a lot.
Yeah.
They're pushing, and I have been in touch with Kenya. I worked with Kenya for many years, and
Right.
I always saw
Yeah.
the strength of the women, and I know the women are the backbone of any society, really.
You're
So that's my message. The sky is the limit. We have a television reality show called Miss President.
Yes.
So we are going in the second edition now.
Yes.
And many of the female candidates that participated are now running or already in a position.
Yes.
So even if somebody doesn't have the courage to go into the program, they see it, they see it's possible.
Yeah.
Women can do it. And one anecdote,
Yeah.
I'm German,
Yes.
and we had a female chancellor, so that's like the
Yes, for
prime
many,
minister.
many
Yeah.
years.
16 years, Miss Angela Merkel.
Yes.
And there was this story of the young boy who asked his father, can also a man become chancellor? So he already didn't know because he was born
Yes.
into the reign
Of a
of
woman.
Merkel. he had no idea that a man would be eligible.
Yes.
Once we have reached that stage, we are on equal terms.
Yeah, that's true.
So I was very encouraged by that. And so this is also, since Kenya is such a young society, if the values change, within a few years, the whole society has changed, and the position of women is a different one. So it just need a few powerful figures like you and others, influencers, politicians, musicians, and they show the way to the rest.
I like that, and I like that you've brought up even the example of Miss President.
Yeah.
And now it's, this is the second season about to start. On our channel.
Oh, it's on your channel. Great.
Yeah, so we also support, we are very strong on supporting women and women initiatives. And you find that now, even being a political season in Kenya, so this is elections, and we've seen an upsurge of women, just throwing themselves out there to also compete for these positions and hopefully, fulfill that legal rule of 2000 Parliament, right? So, in your country, for example, are women empowered to the point where they are in charge of dockets within the political space, like yourself with the European Union?
We had in this pavilion here, we had a dinner with female leaders here, and I invited women or even young girls from very different walks of life, but also politicians or aspiring politicians, and they said how disadvantaged they are in the race, how harassed they are, how they're judged, how they're obstaculized. And I heard the same about female journalists, political female journalists. So there are so many obstacles, but so I had invited to that dinner all the female ambassadors on the EU side, and we're quite a few.
Okay.
So, and then when we shared our experience, that was such an eye-opener to the Kenyan women, because they thought, in Europe everything is bright and good for women, and they couldn't believe the stories that they heard. For example, that in Spain, elections for voting for women was just never heard of until a few years ago. That still women in the boardroom are very scarce. That in Germany they had to make a ruling having a minimum threshold. And in many countries in Europe, for the exact same job, women get much less pay.
Yes.
Like there's at least a 20% pay gap. So equality is not there, but maybe we are all on a journey, and I think wherever we are, we have to try to make the best.
You're
and
right.
have the trailblazers.
I like what you've said about all of us being on a journey, because, for example, if the women in Europe compared to the women in Africa, it's actually a journey. That's what it is. So we shouldn't be looking at our sisters elsewhere and feel that, you may have progressed in some areas, but it's still a journey. We all each have a journey. And then having women like you here also coming to amplify your voices, so that women like us feel, oh, wow, okay.
It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
The other day I gave another interview, and I don't know who it was from the group. They said, I'm now... No, it was at the women's dinner. And one of the Kenyan women said, now after seeing you, I'm so encouraged, because you're small and you made it to that position. So I'm small. I can become somebody.
It's possible.
Yeah. So I mean, I think in the early days, when very few women were in business or in politics, they had to be very tough and very hard to themselves. Then if you're so hard to yourself, then you cannot be very generous to the others either. And I found when I first got started in the very early years of my professional activity, I found quite a few of those iron ladies. in their armor and having to stand there or sit there and defend themselves.
Yes.
And I think child services have much improved in Europe too,
Yeah.
and the prejudice against professional women has decreased.
Decrease. Yeah. Yeah.
So in some countries, basically like in Spain
Yeah.
or in Italy, within a generation you had such a huge change in terms of women and their status and position in society. In the past you had the stereotype, for example, of the Italian mama
Yes.
having a huge family clan around the dining table with beautiful pasta
Yeah.
and pizza
Yeah.
and taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
And nowadays, the birth rate in Italy is negative, I think, as is in Spain.
Yeah.
The women are professional, they don't want to be housewives
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Cooking skills are disappearing. But I mean, this is just a sign of equality.
It's
Yeah?
true. It's true.
So, and I see with my girls, I have two grown-up girls.
Nice. Uh-huh.
So one is becoming 20 this weekend,
Okay.
and the other one is 23.
Okay.
Now the two have boyfriends, but the boyfriends, they are there as part of the life. It's not their life. They are not giving up everything
No.
else for a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or if the boyfriend is a golfer, they become a golfer.
Yeah.
If the boyfriend is a musician, they become. So
Yeah.
that has completely changed.
Yeah.
So and I'm very proud of my girls because they're not molding themselves around a guy, and the friendships that they have are completely equal
Yeah.
between men, women.
And you don't have to be as aggressive anymore. When you use that example, my mind immediately went to Margaret Thatcher. You know, and you know, back then I actually super admired her, totally, because I'm like, this woman in the middle of all these men, and she's holding her own, and she doesn't care, and what she says is what she says. And then now you find women are a bit softer, we are more comfortable in our skin, we can communicate without the aggression, and people will stop to listen. You know, so when you use that example, my mind went there. But not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that she was in a different time when there are no women, that many women in her position.
That's the prototype of the earlier woman. They are the trailblazers.
Yes.
And as a trailblazer, you
Yeah.
have to be, if you look at the vehicle, it has to be a strong vehicle to
Yes.
open the way. And
Yeah.
that's what was needed at the time.
Yeah.
Now, no longer an issue.
What I actually think is an issue is because the woman has been supported and empowered for so long. Well, not for so long, but maybe a bit more intense. So there's all these projects, organizations, people in places of influence supporting the woman message, and then the boy feels left out.
I see
Have you
that.
encountered
Oh, yeah, a lot. And it's not just in daily life. You see that in careers, in institutions, and it's normal. And I say that because I'm also mentoring men,
Yes.
and they say, "How about me? I'm a French man, or what does that do to me?"
Yes.
And of course, it's unfair because you say, as soon as the quota is reached, there will be equal chances
Yeah.
again. So they have to, unfortunately, take the burden of an unfair path.
Yes.
So individually, I do understand that they feel unfairly treated, because if I'm now 30, I don't want to wait until I'm 50
Yes.
for the next career step.
Yes.
So I recognize that this is an issue
It is.
increasingly.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And for young boys, I think we shouldn't forget there's also violence against boys.
True.
And unfairness and unfair practices
Yes.
against boys. So with all the gender hype, we shouldn't forget
That's
that.
true.
That wouldn't be fair.
That's true.
And I think for boys, what I always said is we can't just isolate ourselves. We have to work with men.
Together.
And especially as mothers, I don't have a son,
Mm-hmm.
but I have seen mothers who give special privileges to their son.
Yes.
And that has to stop.
Yes.
So if mothers are treating their children completely equally
Mm-hmm.
and opening up all the opportunities to
Yes.
both and not already putting them in a straitjacket, or you have to become the doctor or the
Yeah.
pilot,
Yeah.
and you have to play with toys that are only cars and this and that, and penalizing
Yes.
others, girls, for example, who don't want to play with dolls.
That's true.
So there's a lot that can be done in
Yeah.
the early childhood.
Yes.
But what is counting the most, I think, is the role model.
Mm.
So the relationship between the parents and the strong women and men that
Yes.
you find.
Yes.
But I know that in Kenya, as in many other countries, you have a lot of single female, single mother
Mothers.
households.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're struggling so much,
Yeah.
and the boys many times are missing their role model, a male role model,
That's true.
a good one.
Yes. Yes.
So
you're
they
right.
just see different men coming and
Yeah.
going maybe, but
Yeah.
maybe not of the kind that should be admired.
Yeah.
And the idea of having role models that embrace that new spirit of equality
Yes.
and just humanity.
Yes.
We're just people.
That's it. Human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So what we'll do now is take a very short break, and then when we come back, we'll perhaps maybe go sit at that pavilion where you had the dinner the other night.
Okay.
And continue your story, tracing back your steps. But you need to take us on a break using your language, which is German, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to tell the people not to go away for long. We'll be back with the program facing here.
But not in German, no?
In German, yes. We will translate it in English.
Liebe Zuschauer, wir machen jetzt eine ganz kleine Pause, aber wir werden gleich wieder da sein. Also nicht verschwinden, keine Chips und kein Bier aus dem Kühlschrank holen. Wir sind gleich wieder bei euch. Bis gleich.
Welcome back from the break. This is What's Your Story. My name is Catherine Mwangi. We are here still at the beautiful residence of the EU Ambassador to Kenya, Her Excellency Henrietta Geiger. Your name is so unique.
I know, and very difficult to pronounce,
Yeah.
even in Germany or in other places.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had to ask Harrison how to pronounce your name. Let me admit it. so thank
No problem, no problem.
you. Okay. So we've spoken about your work and your passion for women, and not just here. And I love that you've given examples, even African women, Kenyan women, European women. I just love how you have done that interplay, just comparing our scenarios and environments, and our different, how we all just raise different journeys. I love that. And even how you've also spoken about your girls.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you had the opportunity to see your husband living during the interview. So how long have you been married?
For 30 years.
30?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, not technically not yet 30. In May it will be 30.
wow, well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
What's
you.
the secret of such a long, happy marriage?
I think it's the tolerance and respect. So you really have to grow together, and I mean, people change over time,
Yeah.
and you have to give that wiggle room. And if the relationship is too tightly knit, there are problems. So, and we always knew that we are the match. We belong together, and that made us. That allowed us to go through all the challenges.
Yeah.
Peace in the house is the first condition. You cannot do anything else. And this is also what probably kept us together over all those years, because we had we discussed things and then we took a decision, and I had many opportunities. I love to be out in an external posting in an embassy.
Yes.
And I had many opportunities and I didn't take them because my husband said, I want to stay in one house and I want my children to grow up with the same friends, in the same school, the same house.
Yes.
So I said, okay, peace in the family is for me more important. So I just stay in Brussels, and I stayed for more than 20 years, even though I would have, I was itching to go. And so only now that the children are at university, so that was the deal. When the children are out of the house, then I could consider something, and that's what we did now.
I like it. So it was sacrifice. It's give and take. It's give and take.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you sacrifice.
I didn't see it as a sacrifice, because whatever I did in my career was extremely rewarding and interesting. So it's true, I would have loved to go out, but I always enjoyed what I did. And I think that's also the secret for being good at what you're doing and of a career, that you just invest yourself because you like it, not because you must. And you see opportunities, you develop them. And I think it's also important that you help others, that you always work well with others, and like that you advance together.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, I like it. So it's so zen, it's so zen and wholesome. Did you always want to serve in the diplomatic service? Was that always your dream? No? How did you chance on it?
Like many people, I started somewhere and ended up somewhere else. So at first, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to do what my parents told me to do. Teacher, music teacher. They wanted me to become pianist or music teacher or school teacher. I don't know what else they had, but anyhow, I knew that for musician I didn't have enough talent. I knew that, and I wouldn't want to end up having 40 years of teaching piano to young children or something like that. So, and some other things that were just not exciting me. And I remember one time I was at a friend's house, and a friend told me that her sister was studying social work. And I got so intensely jealous. And I knew I wanted to do this, and I didn't allow myself because I thought, oh, it doesn't have a very good status, it's not paying that great, and then I just said to myself, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do. And then I did a couple of internships. I liked it a lot, and I just applied to university, and I got my degree there, and I loved every moment of it. I also worked for some time in the field. I liked it a lot. And from social work, I went into, so I started with working with children first, and then I got into a field more into sociology, and I worked with juvenile offenders. So I worked as probation officer, I worked in the courts and prison system, and I saw the very strong injustice in the system, the bias towards poor people, marginalized groups. And I said, as a social worker, you're only dealing with an individual case, but you never go to the root cause of the problem. And I had so many cases where I said, this person is innocent. It's the circumstances. And then I got a scholarship to go to the US to study exactly that. So I got a master's degree in urban policy, and I did internships also in that area. And at one point, I did also an internship at the UN in juvenile justice. In my field, I worked for New York Police Department. I worked for 1 year, actually not 1 or 2 years, with street children in New York. So I did a lot in that field. I also worked for a bank for some time, for Chase Manhattan Bank on 44 Wall Street. I remember the address, and I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot, and I was not in the traditional banking field, but in the philanthropy, in the grant making. That was brilliant, and they offered me a job and green card at the end of my scholarship, but then I said no way. I first I signed the Declaration of Honor that I would come back to my home country and serve my home country. It's a Fulbright Scholarship, and that you have to sign. And so I wanted to honor that, and then I thought, I studied all these things. Now I want to see what Europe has to offer. And then I said, I can always come back to New York if I want. I never came back, even though it's still my favorite city. Oh yeah, I loved it. Every minute of it. I felt as if my fingers were stuck in a electric socket like that. I liked it. Yeah, to be supercharged 24 hours. Yeah, but then coming back to Europe, I got an offer from the German government to work as young professional officer in the UN. So I accepted that to go to Vienna, and I worked there with an Iron lady, an Undersecretary General. She looked exactly like that, with the small handbag and the Thatcher type. And so that's how I got into international, into the international career. And so from the social side, I went into the policy, and from there to the international, and then from the UN onwards, I always worked international. And then I worked for the German development program for some time. I worked for UNICEF, and at one point, when I was still in Vienna with the UN, I saw in the newspaper an ad for a concours, that's a selection procedure to become an EU official. And at that time I thought, well, why don't you apply? It's always good to have options in life. So I applied, I got it, but then I was invited once for an interview, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I will never go to Brussels. It's so boring, it's a very drab city, and what I was offered was very boring. I said, no way, Jose, this... So I completely turned my back and worked different international jobs, like with the GIZ and others, and they... after some time, they contacted me and said, we closed the list. Either you come now or you forget it forever. And in the meantime, I had learned that so many people apply and so few get in. And I thought, I was already married at the time, so I talked to my husband and we said, I'm just throwing it away without ever giving it a chance. And then I mean, it's a civil service job, but nobody can force you to stay. So you can just give it a try. If you don't like it, you just get out. So I said, okay, let's give it a try. and then here I was. I'm since 1995 an official of the European Union. So I started in the Council of County Secretariat, so that's the decision-making body of the EU, and then I went to the European Commission on external relations, and since then since 1997 I've been without break on external relations. So sometimes more on the political side, sometimes more on the development cooperation side. And I was also in a delegation that we call our embassies delegations. I was 4 years in Guatemala during the time just after the signature of the peace agreements there. And the rest, I was in Brussels. I was China desk for 5 years. That was very exciting. Then I worked on the Horn of Africa. That was when I first worked with Kenya. And I liked the Kenyan spirit so much because, I mean, Horn of Africa is a difficult portfolio, and you have to make a lot of effort to get some tangible results. And I knew I could rely on Kenya always. So I was in charge of something called, among other things, the Horn of Africa initiative, where you connect the different countries through win-win projects. So interconnectivity in roads, electricity, and so on. But I saw already at the time that Kenya was really the partner I could rely on. So whenever I needed some special push, I could go to the Kenyan government, and I always got a response. And I knew that I just get along with the Kenyan mindset. Let's say it was a good match. And then after the Horn of Africa, I worked on Latin America for 5 years. Actually, Latin America and the Caribbean. That was also fantastic. I speak Spanish. My husband is of Latin origin. I like also the Caribbean a lot. There's a lot of fun in it, a lot of music and very social people. And then I did Asia also for some time. So I had done 5 years of China, but then this was Asia from the development cooperation perspective. So I was working more with the poorer countries in Asia, but and the Pacific. But I never made it to the Pacific. I so much wanted to get to the Pacific Islands, but I didn't. Yeah.
When you look back, do you see how your steps back then in New York, even back in your home country, working with the less privileged, the kids, etc., how it has translated to your present? I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Because when you're speaking of when you started by saying what you started by doing is not where you are now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I see like it was your your foundation
to
what you're doing now. Because even here in Kenya, some of the work I've seen you do, even just going outside Nairobi and working with women and projects out there, it's more or less the same thing.
You know, in all the jobs I have been doing, I was building on what I did before, and even the job that I'm doing now, there's rarely a moment where I have to say I didn't do this before, or I cannot build on something I did. And it's like a magical thing that I can draw on all the things. And you would say, and that's what I say to people, or even my girls, but how does that fit in my CV, and how would that be seen, and how could I go from here to there? So don't worry, it will fall into place. One thing follows the next, and a new door will open that you cannot see yet. And I have seen that in my career. You think this doesn't fit together, and it all fits together and matches in the end. And the last job I had before coming here, I was Director of People and Peace in DG INPA in the European Commission. That's Development Cooperation.
Okay.
So I was in charge of all our thematic cooperation. So instead of a regional geographical base, I had a thematic one. So I was in charge of things like health, education, security, migration, culture. So, and that was human rights. That was also women. That was also very fascinating because I saw a completely different angle, and this helps me a lot here in Kenya because all the areas I worked on, I can use here.
So
Yeah.
everything comes together.
It comes together, yeah.
Together. I love it. I love this story. It's beautiful. So much for celebrating women, or at least helping to empower women here, and generally in Africa, where the program is watched. So your message to the women as we say goodbye.
I think it's important that we celebrate each day, not only the day of the women or the month of the women, but we celebrate each other every day. We appreciate what we have, and we see our own potential and the potential also in others, and just try to move along in the group. And for me, I have seen so many supportive women groups, either friends or in a professional context, and you never know where the next support is coming from. I feel very passionate about the European project. When I was young, I always saw, EU bureaucratic, and it's like, especially after coming back from the US, where everything is so young and dynamic and energetic. I thought in EU, in the European countries, you have so much tradition and structures, and everything is a bit prescribed, let's say. But then, as I started to work for the EU, I became so passionate about the European idea, especially since Europe had those two terrible world wars, and they came together after the Second World War and said, never again. We want to work together, and the EU started as a union of steel and coal. So exactly what we're trying to do also in the Horn of Africa, to see what are common interests, that where is the win-win, and from that idea of seeking the common good rather than the differences, the EU was born. And I think we have come a very long way, even though we have challenges left and right and center. So, but it's a project, and we are all imperfect, so our institutions have to be also the reflection of that.
We are. So do you ever get to rest? Your calendar, your schedule is packed.
I told you, I have, I feel as if I had no free time. For example, here inside is a piano that I haven't moved in weeks, and I'm itching to go, and each time then something else comes up, or I come home very late at night, and then I just need to rest, and I need to get a couple of hours sleep. But you know, I've always been quite a spiritual person, and that helps me a lot to have that inner strength. So I'm trying to be as grounded as I can, so I don't get too worked up and too exhausted. So I'm also trying to do sports, and I meditate, do yoga, and so on. So to try. In Brussels, I used to run a lot. Here is difficult. I run around this block here, but I got a personal trainer, so you have to adjust. but that helps a lot in stress management.
Yeah.
And I just restarted to read books because I hadn't, the first couple of months coming here, I hadn't read a single book.
Okay.
And I'm part of a book club.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading at least 2 books a month,
Uh-huh.
and it was quite. And in my previous job, I was already thinking that I was working around the clock. But then coming here and adjusting, and that gave me very little free time,
Yeah. Yeah.
because part of my job is also to do social engagements.
Yeah.
So, but I feel that as I'm also moving more into the job, I will get more time
Yeah.
for myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I need to try to keep some weekends completely free, and
Yeah.
that happened already sometimes. And
Nice.
I just lounge here in the gardens, and without any pressures,
Yeah.
and that makes me fully resourced again. Huh?
Nice. I like that. Oh, I like that. Do you cook?
Oh, I love
Oh,
cooking.
you do?
But I haven't, I hardly cooked since I came. First, because here we have a cook, so it's prescribed
Yeah.
as part of
Yes.
the job.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, yesterday I came like 15 minutes before dinner with 15 people, so it's impossible to do that. But I'm a passionate cook.
Yeah.
I love cooking, and I'm one of those cooks that I'm not like that I need to measure everything. I have to have a long shopping list and plan long ago. I open the fridge, I look what is there, and I magically put something together. And I was famous during the student years that I could cook a meal in 20 minutes with everybody hungry around
Yeah.
the table. So I can fix something with hardly any out
Yeah.
of with very few ingredients.
Ingredients and
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah.
But now we need you to, what do you call it? When you finally find your grounding, maybe in the next 8 months, then yes, we'll come eat food you've made.
Oh, I brought a special machine
For what?
for making pasta. In
Oh.
my area, you have something called Spätzle in the south of Germany, and it's like where you make a dough and you press it through a metal contraption,
Yeah.
and it gives like sort of spaghetti,
Uh-huh.
thicker spaghetti,
Yeah.
and that's our, let's say, the regional dish. And every woman from that region needs to have a machine like that.
For that.
So my children just brought it now as I came, as they came for Christmas, they brought the machine, and I haven't yet done it, but I will. Huh?
You will when your calendar opens up.
Yeah.
But this was such a great conversation. Thank you for hosting us. Your journey is admirable, and I love that you haven't forgotten your beginnings, where you started, just helping people. That's the spirit I gather from you. That's what I've learned. You just got over here to help people. So whether it's Guatemala, whether it's New York, whether it's Germany, and now here, it's really inspiring, and I thank you for sharing that.
But I come from a family of public service, because my ancestors, they have been mayors. So I come from a family of mayors, and so the idea of public service, serving the public good, and also standing tall and proud for your values and for the community is something that I grew up with.
Yeah, it's generational.
Yeah.
And also now your kids, I presume. Okay. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. We've run out of time, but just listening to your story, man, the women, and just people in general, just see your journey. It's clarity. And I'm glad you shared it with us. Asante sana.
Asante sana. I'm so happy that you gave me the opportunity, and it's great to meet you, and you're always welcome to come back. Huh?
Thank you so much. And to you watching, asante Asante sana for watching. We are celebrating Women History